All right, Chapter 16, World War II. Looking at our key terms, we have Axis powers and allies. Where have we heard that term allies before? Natalie? World War I. Remember, it was the allies and the Central Powers. So the allies' name stays the same. So a lot of the countries that were on the Allied side are still on the Allied side, but instead of Central Powers, now we have the Axis powers. So some countries switch sides, some stay the same. United States stays with the Allies, Great Britain with the Allies. We will notice some changes on the list of Axis powers and the Allies. We're going to talk about civilians in the home front, what the people back home were doing to support the war. We're going to talk about rationing and victory gardens, things that people back home were doing. We're going to talk about the draft and what the draft is all about. So those are key terms for this chapter. So our first question is war in Europe. So the question is, what caused World War II to start in Europe? So what was happening that Europe started fighting? So we know there was World War I, a war to end all wars, and people thought life was going to be great. What did we learn about in the last chapter? What happened? What big thing happened in the United States and across the world? Natalie? The Great Depression. Things were bad, right? Things were really hard, not just in the United States, but across the world. So the Depression was happening. The countries that lost World War I, they were in a bad place. So there's lots of things that were happening. So let's see what caused World War II to start in Europe.
War in Europe. Germany's dictator, Adolf Hitler, promised to restore the strength and pride his nation had enjoyed before being defeated in World War I. Part of his plan was to seize land from neighboring countries. In 1939, his troops invaded Poland. The leaders of Great Britain, France, and several other countries feared that Hitler would continue to attack his neighbors if they did nothing to stop him. They responded by declaring war on Germany. World War II had begun.
So, think about what we learned about alliances in World War I. What problem did the alliance have happening here? What was happening in Europe? Christina? What actually was he doing? What did they say he was doing? He was invading the neighboring countries. Well, what did their allies do? What did he invaded Poland? What did Poland's allies do? Did they say, "Oh man, that really, it's too bad for you. Oops, I'm sorry." What did they do, Adeline?
They helped them get back and then they came back. And they supported them.
Supported them how?
They sent soldiers.
Rocco?
They declared war.
They declared war on Germany. We got your back. We're here for you. We are going to declare war. Okay? He's invading countries that he shouldn't, so we will support you by declaring war and fighting back. Not just supporting by giving you supplies and giving you food. We're actually going to go to war for you. Right? That alliance system, remember, starts off with the beef between Germany and Poland, and it becomes huge. Okay? So, what caused World War II to start? Germany was invading countries.
At first, most Americans, and most Minnesotans, wanted to stay out of what people considered a European war. Still, the United States could not ignore what was happening in Europe. In 1940, after defeating Poland and occupying much of Eastern Europe, Germany's army swept through and occupied Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. In 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Great Britain suffered nightly bombing raids and feared a German invasion. The United States became alarmed and started sending weapons and supplies to its close ally Great Britain to help it hold off the Germans.
Did the United States join the war right away? No. Very similar to World War I. This is a Europe problem. Those are battles happening over in Europe. We got the Great Depression going on. We're not in a good place ourselves. Then it starts getting bigger and bigger, and Germany is spreading their power farther and farther, and the United States is like, we gotta do something. So we're not joining the war, but we're gonna support by sending weapons. We're gonna support by sending stuff to people, but we're not joining it yet. So question 2 says, what actually caused the United States to officially enter the war? Without even turning our page, who knows what caused the United States to enter the war? My World War II buff, Nolan.
Japan bombed Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, the bombing of Pearl Harbor, when the United States was actually attacked. The United States thought, we're way over here, we're across the ocean. Okay, that's happening across the sea, we don't have to be a part of it. Well, now we're getting attacked. So the bombing of Pearl Harbor, Japan bombing Pearl Harbor, brought us into the war. President Roosevelt says, this is a day that will go down in infamy. Infamy means we will remember it, but not for a good reason. 9/11, when the planes attacked that flew into the buildings. We remember that day in infamy. It's not a good reason we're remembering 9/11, right? Memorial Day that we just had yesterday, is that infamy that we remember as? No, it's a good thing. We are remembering our soldiers. We are honoring them, right? It's good thing to remember those people. Pearl Harbor, ooh, bad things happen where that's not a positive. So that's why if somebody is infamous, it means they're famous for bad reasons. They did bad things. So they're not famous, happy, they're infamous.
Meanwhile, war was also brewing in Asia and on islands in the Pacific Ocean. In the 1930s, Japan invaded northern China, Korea, and parts of Southeast Asia. Japan wanted to expand its empire and take over countries that had valuable natural resources such as iron, salt, coal, and land for farming. The United States benefited greatly from trade with the countries Japan was invading, so it considered Japan a military threat. For a while, the United States and Japan tried to resolve their differences peacefully, but military leaders in Japan believed war between the two nations could not be avoided.
So, they attack. That's what brings the United States in. So, we have the two different sides, the Axis powers and the Allies. Number 3, name the 3 nations that led the Axis and the 3 nations that led the Allies. So are there more countries that are on the Allies and on the Axis? Yeah, but we're naming the top 3. So the Allies, let's listen to that.
Allies. The nations that fought against the Axis powers during World War II, led by Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and the United States.
Those are the 3 big allies you need to list. So then we have the Axis powers. I don't have that right now. So the Axis nations, one side were the Axis nations led by Germany, Italy, and Japan. And then we have those allies that are Great Britain, Soviet Union, and the United States. So now let's watch a quick little video about Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor.
My dad had sent me up to the drugstore to get a Sunday morning paper. And as I walked into the drugstore, they had the radio on, and the guy said, "We interrupt this program."
We interrupt this broadcast, bring you this important bulletin from the United Press. Flash, Washington. The White House announces Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
I paid for the paper and went back home, and by that time my dad was sitting there with his ear up against the radio, cussing.
I didn't pay much attention to it. A little while later, a friend of mine came walking by and said, "Do you hear that? We're going to go to war." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, Pearl Harbor was attacked." And I said, "Well, where's that?"
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
I remember my mother just really crying because I had a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old brother, and my mother was really worried.
We all thought, well, it's going to be over by the time we get old enough to go, you know. Well, it wasn't.
I was real glad to see the way our young men stepped forward to do what they could to defend our country.
We will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
I think most Americans had the sense that we were going to have to fight Japan and Germany before they got any stronger than what they were. But when I walked in that drugstore and heard them say that we interrupt this program, that was the turning point in all of our lives.
So, I obviously was not alive back then. I'm not that old. My parents weren't even alive back then. So my grandfather ended up going to fight in the war. This was a long time ago. Reminiscent of what I remember when 9/11 happened. Okay, everybody's just going about their business, and all of a sudden the word starts to, did you hear? Did you see it on the news? And people start talking about, oh my goodness, this big, huge thing. We were attacked. So think about those interviews that we did at the beginning of the year, talking with someone who was alive during 9/11 and what their feelings were. That's like what we were hearing here from these people interviewed, what their feelings were when Pearl Harbor was attacked, and knowing we were getting brought into this war. Alright. So, people in Minnesota were affected by this. Okay, we know that people enlisted and joined up to become soldiers to go to war. There's a lot of people who didn't enlist, the women, the children, the elderly, the men too old to fight. Mr. Gambino wouldn't sign up to go fight. He's not an elderly person, but he's older. My son Mateo's 21. He would sign up to go fight, right? So if you didn't enlist yourself, you knew people who were enlisted. You wanted to support them. You wanted to support your country. So we're going to learn about the home front. What was happening back home here in Minnesota. So what does the term home front mean?
Home front, the area of civilian, non-military activity during a war.
All you have to do for that one is write your definition, right? The area of civilian activity during a war. So it's not military. What were the civilians back home doing to support it? When you are at war, there's the front is where the battles are actually happening. So when people are saying, oh, they got sent up to the front, they got sent up to the battles. Well, the home front would be the home side, okay? Not where the battles are happening, but where the civilians live back home. What can we do? We talked in World War I about things that people did to support, right? We talked about those propaganda posters. Oh, send your wheat to the women of France, right? Support them. We're going to find out what kind of support happened during World War II. So there are stories of people from Minnesota and what they did individually. The soldiers, the people that were waiting to see if they were going to sign up. We're not going to go in depth on the individual stories with this chapter. We're going to talk more about the broad sense, like what was Minnesota doing, people that lived in Minnesota. If you want to hear their individual experiences, William Cunning's diary, what he actually thought and felt while he was going to war, you can read those on your own. Okay. We're gonna focus on the more bigger picture. So, in Minnesota, we have companies. Some companies kept doing what they were doing, and their product could help the military. Some companies changed their product up a bit to be able to help the military. So in our table for the war work, we have different Minnesota companies, and we're gonna learn what products they made to support the war. So, here, let's just listen to this for a minute.
War work. Ever since the war had begun in Europe in 1939, more than 2 years before the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States had been sending food and weapons to Great Britain and the Soviet Union to help their war effort. U.S. military planners also knew that if America entered the war, the nation would need all sorts of supplies. It would especially need weapons and ammunition for its own soldiers. These planners pushed for a huge increase in the production of war-related supplies. Twin Cities Ordnance in New Brighton was one of more than 200 government-owned weapons factories that opened in the United States between 1940 and 1945.
Okay, Twin Cities Ordnance was here in New Brighton, close to us. When my dad graduated from college in 1968, it was during the Vietnam time, so the Vietnam War. Twin Cities Ordnance was still around. That's who my dad got hired by. So instead of becoming a soldier, he started working here. So his duty, instead of being on the battlefront, going to Vietnam and fighting, his job was just as important back here in the United States, supporting the military, because they have military contracts. My dad was an electrical engineer. His job was working on the designs for tanks and working with how the turrets moved, the guns that they put on those tanks, and how they were able to move. And so he would design it, and then he would have to go out and check to see if it's moving how it's supposed to move, and he would talk with the soldiers that were actually riding in the tanks and making sure the design worked, right? So not everybody who's of the right age to fight went to go fight. Sometimes their duty was back here on the home front, right? Because we need the people back home supporting the people in the fight. What was it that Twin Cities Ordnance did during World War II? Yeah, they made weapons. So products to help the war effort, weapons.
Manufacturing. Many Minnesota companies contributed to the war effort. Some started making different products that the military needed. Others increased production of things that were suddenly in high demand. Munsingwear, a Minneapolis underwear manufacturer, made military clothing. Crown Ironworks, also of Minneapolis, produced portable bridges and pontoon boats. Anderson Corporation, a window manufacturer in Bayport, made huts for the military that could be assembled quickly and easily. Hormel, a meat processing company based in Austin, made millions of cans of Spam luncheon meat to feed soldiers and civilians around the world.
So let's look at that. Munsingwear, they made underwear. How did they change their product to help the military? James?
Instead of doing underwear, they did uniforms.
Yeah, military clothing, right? So they changed up there's still a clothing place, underwear is clothing, military uniforms is clothing. They changed what they were making to support the military better. So Munsingwear made military clothing. Crown Ironworks, what did they make? Alyssa?
Portable bridges and pontoon boats.
Portable bridges and pontoon boats. Why do you think portable bridges were important? Anybody know about battles that happened in World War II that would make portable bridges an important thing to have? Adeline, what do you think?
Maybe get over rivers.
So, do you think that there were bridges already there for people to get over into cities? So let's say that the Axis powers takes over a city in France and they occupy it. What do you think they're gonna do so the Allies can't attack them? Bridget? They're gonna blow up the bridges. Oh, you can't get across the river. Ha, this city is ours. So we have places like Crown Ironworks that says, well, we're gonna make portable bridges. So we're gonna send those over, so if the bridge gets blown up, we'll still be able to get across and take back that city. Super important, right? Otherwise, it would be so easy just to blow up all the bridges and say, oh, you can't get us, we're safe. Nope, we're gonna make the portable bridges so we can get to you. You can't stop us. Andersen Window Company, still around today. Anybody ever heard commercials for Andersen Windows?
I think.
Some of us do. If you,
Good afternoon, students. These are your Tuesday afternoon announcements. We have a couple pickups in the office, please. Beckett Seibert and Bryn Engelkest. Please come to the office to pick something up. We hope you have a terrific rest of your Tuesday, and remember to be kind before you leave. Be strong and courageous. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
so Andersen Windows is around today, right? They're a big window company. My in-laws this spring just had new windows from Andersen put in at their house. They replaced windows in houses. Big thing still today. Did we need windows in World War II? No. So what did they make? Eleanor? So think about the front, where those battles are happening. It's not stationary, right? It's not, oh, I'm going to the front, we're setting up our command center. This is where we will be for the whole duration of the war. No, it's constantly moving. We're gaining ground, we're losing ground, right? It's going back and forth. We're invading a new country, okay? So where the battles are happening is constantly moving. So they can't just set up their command center in one place and stay there for years. When you're at the front, you need to be able to set up those huts, set up those command centers, and be able to move them as the front moves. So it was important to have these military huts that could be assembled quickly and easily and taken down just as quickly and easily. Hormel. Hormel's still around today. What does Hormel make? One product that they make. Robbie.
Spam.
What is Spam? Liam.
Meat.
It is a meat product. It's got the protein, right? It comes in a can. So when I buy meat from the grocery store, we had steak for dinner last night. We barbecued. What did I have to do with my steak when I came home after buying it at the store?
Thaw.
It wasn't already thawed. It was fresh.
Then put it in the thing,
What is that big thing that we put it in? The fridge. Okay, so you come home from the grocery store, you're putting the meat into the fridge until it's time for you to eat it, right? You take it out of the fridge and you cook it right away. What happens if you don't put it in the fridge when you come home? We bought our meat on Sunday, but we didn't eat it until Monday. What would have happened if we had left it out, Addie?
It would go bad.
It'd go bad, right? Fresh meat needs to be refrigerated. So when you're at war and you're at the front, right, the soldiers up there with battles, is it important for them to have meat? Why? What do we get from meat?
Protein.
Protein, right? We want them to keep their energy up. We want them to be healthy. Protein helps with that. So it's important that they're getting those proper nutrients. But we can't give them fresh meat because they're up fighting, right? They don't have refrigerators. They don't have coolers with ice packs in them. So they get the tins of Spam that has the protein in it to help them be strong. So Hormel started mass producing the Spam in the cans to send to the military to keep our soldiers strong. Now, I personally have never tried Spam. I've heard people say, oh my goodness, it is disgusting. But then I hear people say, you know what? We went on vacation in Hawaii, and the way that they prepare it in Hawaii, it is amazing. It is so good. So, do you think the Spam that the soldiers in World War II had was ew or amazing? Yeah, they didn't have the seasonings and all of the stuff to prepare it the way that they do in Hawaii to go, wow, this is like a delicacy. This is like amazing stuff. They just had the can, they opened it, and they ate it. So if you think about eating tuna fish out of the can. So tuna fish from the can can be good if you prepare it a certain way. Growing up, my mom found a recipe for a tuna fish stir fry, and we would have that Friday nights in Lent. And all the seasoning that you put in and the vegetables you put in, it didn't taste like tuna fish at all. But when Mr. Gambino opens the tin of tuna fish at home and just eats it, it's so yucky. He does the same thing with anchovies. Not my thing. Okay, that's what I think of when I think of Spam and opening it. I think it smells gross and tastes gross. But if you're a soldier, are you gonna learn to eat it? Yeah, because you're hungry and you want to be healthy. You get over it real quick if that's the food that you have. James.
Speaking of Spam, I saw this really funny YouTube short how like they scoop out a bunch of meat of the Spam and they put a little bit of egg in it and they put it in the microwave and the picture said it was really good and like perfectly cooked egg. So when they cut it open, the egg was not cooked at all. It just spewed out and it was like, it was not.
So what would we call that? What did we learn about in our last chapter?
A meal.
If they're saying, oh, look, it's perfectly cooked, look how wonderful it is. But it's not.
Persuasive.
No, they use the persuasive strategy. Adeline? Propaganda, right? Is propaganda always true? No. Right? So that is a form of propaganda. Trying to get everybody to buy into it, using those glittering generals. Look at how wonderful this looks. It's perfectly cooked. It was lies. A lot of times propaganda can be lies. Natalie.
It's like when my mom eats her hard-boiled eggs in the car. Like, who would do that? Those are good. Wait, do they just like sit in the car? No,
So-
she eats them and it's disgusting.
So when you need to eat hard eggs, have lots of good protein. Love eggs, love hard-boiled eggs. But when you're in a small, confined space, it can be a little stinky.
We were like this, so that's why. But still, I just eat it when we're out screaming.
Well, once you get to school, you got work to do. And that's your job time. Okay, so we have gotten that whole front page done. We will work on the back page tomorrow. Yeah. That's as far as we made it in this. Okay, if you are listening to this at home, I hope you are well. And I hope to see you soon. Have a wonderful day.